I could not believe I was finally holding the keys to my own house. After years of overtime and saving every penny I had done it, a 3-bedroom craftsman with a backyard in my favorite neighborhood. But my moment of triumph was overshadowed by family drama. My sister Stephanie had sided with my ex Melanie when I caught her cheating with my friend Jackson. Now my parents were demanding I let Stephanie move into my new house rent-free. They were furious when I refused. The betrayal stung twice as deep. Before I continue this painful story, let me know where you are watching from in the comments. If you have ever dealt with family taking advantage of you, hit that like button and subscribe to hear how I finally stood up for myself. The day I signed the closing papers on my house should have been the happiest of my life. Instead, I sat alone in the parking lot afterward. No one to celebrate with no congratulatory calls from family. I had always been the reliable middle child, the one who put everyone else first. Growing up in our modest Seattle neighborhood, I watched my parents favor my younger sister Stephanie. She was the baby, the princess, the one who needed extra help, and I accepted that role without complaint. I remember carrying Stephanie on my shoulders at county fairs when she got tired of walking. I tutored her through high school math. I even helped pay for her college textbooks when our parents struggled financially. My identity had always been wrapped up in being the dependable brother, the one who sacrificed. That sacrifice extended to my career choices too. While I had dreamed of pursuing music production, I opted for the practical route. Computer science provided a stable future, the ability to help my family, and eventually the means to buy my own home. After graduation, I landed an entry-level position at a growing software company downtown. The hours were long, but the opportunities for advancement were real. That is how I met Melanie. She was presenting at a tech conference where my company had sent me to network. Her presentation on user interface design captivated me, but it was her confident laugh during the networking mixer that drew me to introduce myself. With her curly auburn hair and quick wit, she seemed too sophisticated for someone like me, but somehow she gave me her number. Our first date stretched from coffee to dinner to late-night walks along the waterfront. We connected over our shared love of indie films and vintage arcade games. By the third date, I knew this relationship was different. Melanie challenged me, supported my goals, and made me laugh harder than anyone ever had. As our relationship deepened over the next 3 years, I started to imagine a future with her. We talked about marriage, about buying a home together someday. She even suggested neighborhoods where we might look when the time came. I worked extra hours and took on freelance coding jobs, building my savings account with our shared dream in mind. Stephanie and Melanie hit it off immediately when they met at a family barbecue. Soon they were shopping together and meeting for lunch regularly. I was thrilled that the most important people in my life got along so well. It seemed like everything was falling perfectly into place. My hard work at the office finally paid off with a promotion to senior developer. The substantial raise accelerated my savings timeline. I had been putting away 30% of every paycheck, and with the promotion, I could save even more. Living in a tiny studio apartment and driving an old car were small sacrifices with such an important goal on the horizon. When my savings account finally hit $70,000, I could hardly believe it. This was really happening. I called Melanie immediately, and we agreed to start looking at listings that weekend. The excitement in her voice matched my own, and I fell asleep that night dreaming of breakfast nooks and backyard gardens. But the universe has a twisted sense of humor. Just as one dream was becoming reality, another was beginning to unravel. I started noticing subtle changes in Melanie. She would cancel our house hunting plans at the last minute. Her phone would ping with text messages late at night, and she would quickly turn the screen away. When I asked if everything was okay, her answers came too quickly, too rehearsed. My friend Jackson, who worked in marketing at my company, began acting strangely too. He and Melanie had met at company parties and always seemed to get along well. But now he would avoid eye contact in the break room, make excuses to leave when I joined conversations. I tried to convince myself I was being paranoid. One evening, I confided my concerns to Stephanie during our weekly phone call. Instead of the supportive response, I expected she seemed defensive of Melanie. "She has been really busy at work," Stephanie said dismissively. "You are probably just overthinking things. You do that sometimes." Her words planted seeds of doubt in my mind. Maybe I was just anxious about the house hunt. Maybe the pressure of such a big financial decision was making me imagine problems that were not there. I decided to trust Stephanie's assessment and focus on the positive. But sometimes the worst things we imagine cannot compare to the reality waiting to blindside us. The memory of that rainy Tuesday still makes my stomach clench. I had finished work early and decided to surprise Melanie with takeout from her favorite Thai restaurant. As I climbed the stairs to my apartment, I heard music playing inside. Strange, since Melanie had said she would be working late. The scene that greeted me when I opened the door is permanently seared into my brain. Melanie and Jackson on my couch, partially undressed, so engrossed in each other they did not even notice me standing there. The takeout bags dropped from my hands, spilling across the floor. That is when they finally looked up. Melanie gasped, scrambling for her shirt. "This is not what it looks like." The absurdity of that statement might have been funny under different circumstances, but standing there watching my girlfriend and friend frantically redress laughter was the furthest thing from my mind. Not what it looks like. My voice sounded foreign to my own ears. "Because it looks like you two are sleeping together in my apartment." Jackson did not even have the decency to appear ashamed. "Man, these things happen. We did not mean for you to find out this way." "This way? How exactly were you planning for me to find out?" The anger was building now, replacing the initial shock. Melanie tried to approach me, but I stepped back. "Hunter, please. We need to talk about this." "How long?" I demanded. The question hung in the air. They exchanged glances, and that silent communication told me everything I needed to know. This was not a one-time mistake. "About 6 months," Melanie finally admitted. 6 months. Half a year of lies. Half a year of me planning our future while they laughed behind my back. The betrayal was staggering. "Get out," I said quietly. "Both of you. Now." After they left, I sat in the darkness of my apartment, trying to process what had just happened. My phone buzzed repeatedly with texts and calls from Melanie, which I ignored. Around midnight, I finally called the one person I thought would understand my sister. Stephanie answered on the fourth ring, her voice groggy with sleep. I poured out everything that had happened, my words tumbling over each other. When I finished, the silence on the other end stretched uncomfortably long. "Well," she finally said, "I am not totally surprised." Her words hit like a physical blow. "What do you mean, Hunter? You have been so focused on saving money and buying a house. When was the last time you took Melanie somewhere special, did something spontaneous? Maybe if you were not so boring and obsessed with your savings account, she would not have looked elsewhere." I could not believe what I was hearing. My own sister defending the woman who had betrayed me. I hung up without another word. The days that followed revealed the true extent of Stephanie's betrayal. Not only did she maintain her friendship with Melanie, but she invited her to family dinner the following Sunday. When I refused to attend, my parents called to express their disappointment in me. "Stephanie says, you are being unreasonable," my mother said. "These things happen in relationships. You need to get over it for the sake of family harmony." Family harmony. As if my pain was less important than avoiding awkward dinner conversation. Neither of my parents asked how I was doing or offered any sympathy for what I had been through. Their concern, as always, centered on Stephanie and her feelings. I withdrew from family gatherings, unable to stomach seeing Melanie there or hearing Stephanie defend her actions. My parents interpreted this as me being difficult, not as the self-preservation it was. They praised Stephanie for keeping the peace while painting me as the problematic one. The emotional toll was immense. I struggled to concentrate at work, especially with Jackson just down the hall. I started seeing a therapist who helped me recognize patterns of always putting others before myself, of seeking validation through sacrifice. For the first time, I began to question whether my family truly had my best interests at heart. As painful as this period was, it also brought clarity. I realized I had been saving for a house with the wrong motivation. It had not been about my future, but about creating a space where I could finally earn my family's approval. Now, I decided to buy a house for myself because I deserved it, not because it would impress anyone else. House hunting alone was both liberating and melancholy. Each property I viewed was a reminder of conversations with Melanie about our preferences. But gradually, I began to notice my own preferences more clearly. Without having to compromise, I could focus on what truly mattered to me. When I found it, I knew immediately. A 1,920 seconds Craftsman with original hardwood floors, a deep front porch, and mature maple trees in the yard. It needed some work, but the structure was solid and the neighborhood was exactly where I wanted to be. I made an offer the same day slightly above, asking price to beat out other potential buyers. The day my offer was accepted, I felt a surge of pride, unlike anything I had experienced before. This accomplishment was entirely mine. Despite the heartbreak and betrayal, despite the lack of support from my family, I had done this. The house represented not just a financial investment, but an investment in myself and my future. Life has a way of testing your boundaries, just when you think you have established them. 3 days after closing on my house, as I was planning my move, my mother called with news. "Stephanie broke up with Thomas," she announced without preamble. "She has moved back home, but you know how small our place is. We were thinking she could stay with you in your new house. You have plenty of room with 3 bedrooms." The assumption in her voice was clear. Of course I would offer my home to Stephanie. Of course I would put her needs above my own. Again. "Mom, I just bought this house. I have not even moved in yet." Exactly. Perfect timing. Stephanie can help you move and get settled. I took a deep breath. "No, Mom. Stephanie cannot live with me." The silence that followed was deafening. Then came the explosion. "What do you mean, no? She is your sister. After everything we have done for you, you would refuse to help your own family." The irony of that statement was not lost on me. After everything they had done for me, like taking Melanie's side after she cheated, like never once acknowledging my accomplishment of buying a house on my own. "Mom, I am sorry. Stephanie is going through a tough time. But this is my house purchased with money I saved, working 60-hour weeks for years. I need my own space right now. This is because of Melanie is not it. You are still holding a grudge against your sister for staying friends with her. That is so childish, Hunter." And there it was. The dismissal of my feelings, the minimizing of the betrayal. My mother could not even acknowledge that I might have valid reasons for wanting my own space. It is not just about Melanie, though. That was a significant betrayal. This is about me setting boundaries. I love Stephanie, but she needs to figure out her own housing situation. My father got on the phone next, his deep voice resonating with disappointment. "Son, family takes care of family. Your mother and I raised you better than this." The guilt trip was expertly applied, honed by years of practice. But for once, it did not work. "Dad, I agree that family supports each other, but support goes both ways. When did Stephanie last support me? When did any of you?" The conversation ended with my mother in tears and my father warning me I would regret this decision. But as I hung up, I felt strangely calm. For the first time, I had stood my ground. The peace was short-lived. Over the next week, I received daily calls and texts from various family members. Aunts, uncles, and cousins I rarely spoke to suddenly had opinions about my decision. My mother enlisted her entire network to pressure me. "Your poor sister has nowhere to go," my Aunt Carol texted. "Family should come first," wrote my Uncle Dave. Through it all, I maintained my position. This was my house, my space, my boundary. The pressure was intense, but so was my resolve. Stephanie's tactics were more public. She posted vague but pointed comments on social media about selfish people and the importance of family. Mutual friends started asking me what was going on if I was really refusing to help my homeless sister. The narrative being spun was so far from reality, it would have been laughable if it were not so hurtful. Stephanie had a job and could afford an apartment. She simply did not want to pay rent when she could potentially live with me for free. The situation reached its breaking point at a family dinner. I reluctantly agreed to attend, hoping to smooth things over. I arrived at my parents' house to find Stephanie's car packed with boxes and suitcases. "What is all this?" I asked as I entered the dining room. My mother avoided eye contact. "We figured after dinner you could help Stephanie move her things to your place." They had planned this ambush, assuming I would capitulate under direct pressure. Stephanie sat smugly at the table, clearly expecting me to give in. Something shifted inside me at that moment. A lifetime of accommodating others, of putting my needs last, crystallized into perfect clarity. This pattern would never end unless I ended it. "No," I said simply. "That is not happening." "Hunter, please," my mother began. But I was done being interrupted and dismissed. "I need everyone to listen to me. Really listen. I have spent my entire life trying to be the good son, the supportive brother. I worked overtime for years to save for this house. I helped Stephanie through school. I have always put family first. I turned to face my sister directly. When Melanie betrayed me, you took her side. You invited her to family events. You made me feel unwelcome in my own family. And now you expect to live in the house I bought, the house I saved for, while you were out shopping, with the woman who cheated on me." Stephanie's face flushed. "That is ancient history, Hunter. You need to get over it." 6 months is not ancient history. But this is not just about Melanie. This is about respect. I respect myself too much now to let this continue. I stood up my dinner, untouched. "I love all of you, but I will not let you move into my house, Stephanie. I will not let you or anyone else make me feel guilty for finally putting myself first. I deserve that much." My mother was crying again. My father was turning that dangerous shade of red that appeared when he was truly angry. "If you walk out that door," he said, "do not expect to be welcomed back." The threat hung in the air between us. In the past, it would have broken me. But not anymore. "I hope you do not mean that, Dad. But if you do, that is your choice. Just like this is mine." I walked out to the soundtrack of my mother's sobs and my father's angry shouts. The drive home was surreal adrenaline coursing through my veins. Had I really just done that? Had I finally stood up for myself after all these years, as I pulled into the driveway of my new home empty and waiting for me to fill it with my life? I knew the answer was yes. And despite the pain, it felt like freedom. The 2 weeks following the family dinner were the quietest of my life. No calls from my parents, no texts from Stephanie, no social media updates designed to make me feel guilty. The silence was both peaceful and painful. I used the time to move into my house and make it truly mine. I painted the living room a deep blue that Melanie would have hated, but that I had always loved. I set up my home office in the smallest bedroom, arranged my vinyl collection in the built-in shelving, and splurged on a comfortable sectional couch that took up most of the living room. Every decision, from the kitchen organization to the placement of art on the walls, was mine alone. There was freedom in that, but also moments of loneliness. I would catch myself turning to share a thought with someone who was not there. But slowly, I began to build a new kind of support system. I invited coworkers over for a barbecue in my new backyard. I joined the neighborhood association and met the couple next door who shared my interest in gardening. I reconnected with friends I had neglected during my relationship with Melanie. My neighbor Tony helped me install new ceiling fans, and I helped him build a playset for his kids. We started a weekend project group with other homeowners on the street, trading skills and tools. I discovered I had a knack for tile work when I helped another neighbor with their bathroom renovation. These new connections did not replace family, but they offered something different. Relationships based on mutual respect rather than obligation. Friendships where support flowed in both directions. 4 weeks after our confrontation, my phone lit up with a text from Stephanie. My heart raced as I opened it. "Can we talk?" was all it said. I agreed to meet her at a coffee shop downtown Neutral Territory where we could both leave if things got uncomfortable. Stephanie looked different when she walked in. The confident swagger was gone, replaced by something more subdued. She sat across from me, fingers nervously tracing the rim of her mug. "Melanie is dating Jackson now," she blurted out before I could even say hello. "They have been together since you broke up, and now I found out she has been flirting with Thomas. My Thomas." The irony was almost too perfect. "That must be difficult," I said carefully. "I feel so stupid," Stephanie admitted. "You warned me about her, and I did not listen. I chose her over you, and now I can see what kind of person she really is." "People show us who they are eventually," I said instead. "It just takes some of us longer to see it." Tears formed in her eyes. "I am so sorry, Hunter, for everything. For not believing you, for defending her, for expecting to live in your house after how I treated you. The apology was unexpected but welcome. Thank you for saying that. Mom and Dad are sorry too," she continued. "They would never admit it directly, but I can tell. They keep talking about how well you are doing, how proud they are of your house." I smiled at that. Maybe someday they will tell me themselves. 2 days later, my mother called. The conversation was stilted at first, neither of us quite sure how to bridge the gap that had formed. But gradually, the familiar rhythm of our relationship returned, albeit with new boundaries firmly in place. "We would love to see your house," she said eventually. "If you are comfortable with that." I invited them over for dinner the following weekend. The visit was slightly awkward, but mostly positive. My father complimented my landscaping work. My mother brought a houseplant as a housewarming gift. Neither of them mentioned Stephanie moving in. As they were leaving, my father paused on the front porch. "You have done well for yourself, son. We have not always been fair to you, expecting you to always be the responsible one. I am sorry for that." The words I had waited decades to hear. "Thank you, Dad. That means a lot." Our relationship would never be perfect. Old patterns do not disappear overnight, but we were building something new, something with more respect on both sides. I hosted a proper housewarming party a month later. Friends from work, new neighbors, and yes, family, all gathered to celebrate not just my new home, but also this new chapter of my life. Stephanie came bringing an expensive bottle of whiskey and a genuine smile. My parents helped with the food and actually seemed to enjoy themselves. Looking around at the mix of people filling my living room, I realized something profound. Family is important, but it is not the only source of love and support in life. Sometimes the family we choose, the connections we build ourselves, can be just as meaningful as the ones we are born into. More importantly, I learned that setting boundaries is not selfish. It is necessary for healthy relationships. By finally standing up for myself, I had actually improved my relationship with my family. They respected me more now than when I had been endlessly accommodating. The journey from people-pleaser to self-respect had been painful but so worthwhile. I had lost a girlfriend and nearly lost my family in the process, but I had found myself. I had built a home not just of wood and brick, but of boundaries and self-worth. If you are watching this and struggling with similar family dynamics, remember that you deserve respect. Your needs matter. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself and for those you love is to say no. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family? Share your experience in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please hit the like button, subscribe to hear more stories like this, and share with someone who might need to hear this message today. Thank you for listening to my journey. And remember, the house you build for yourself should start with a foundation of self-respect.